Hey, this is Derek Murphy. I wanted to make a video because I was doing a Ask Me Anything on Reddit a couple days ago, which actually got pulled down, and I wanted to make sure that I talked through some of the questions and the answers, which was a really good discussion. So I posted all of that on my blog, and I'm going to see if I can quickly go through the questions and summarize the answers. You can also find a link to this, hopefully down below the video. Real quick, I posted in the R writing group on Reddit, and they have rules against who is allowed to do an Ask Me Anything post. So if I had phrased this differently or just shared some of my points or discussion tips, it probably would have been fine. But because I tagged it as like a Ask Me Anything official post, that's why it got removed. So nothing against Reddit for pulling me down. The moderators of a group have the obligation to follow their own rules. But before it got pulled down, I did get quite a few good questions, and I had put in some pretty fulfilling answers or detailed answers. So there's a lot of valuable information to unpack in a very quick little package, as opposed to a lot of my books, which some of are outdated. This is more crucial, relevant knowledge. The interesting thing about Reddit, or especially the writing group or the subreddit on reddit.com, is that it tends to be mostly newer authors who have not finished a book yet. So it's a lot of writing advice, but you also get a lot of FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You get a lot of people asking, am I good enough? I'm getting stuck. What should I do if writing isn't fun anymore? Stuff like that, which are important conversations. But a lot of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt comes from lack of experience, which you don't get over until you've started publishing books. So to have somebody with a lot of experience publishing books, actually finishing manuscripts and putting them out into the world, they of course have a different viewpoint. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm right about everything, but I do have a lot more experience than most of the other writers on the subreddit. Specifically, this post was kind of a little celebration because I recently figured out that I'm almost at 6 figures lifetime income. So $100,000 of book sales, which sounds really cool, except I'm not just saying, I'm a 6-figure author. I made so much money self-publishing because it's so easy. That's definitely not what I'm saying. In the introduction of this post, I point out that 20% of that is profit, and most of the other money is spent on building my platform or advertising or other things. So I actually got some unexpected responses from people who were like, what did you do wrong? How did you lose $80,000? You must be doing everything wrong, which I wasn't expecting, because I know from experience, a lot of my writing friends have trouble even breaking even. Most authors lose money publishing, so you have to get to that break-even point first. After that, you can scale a little bit. If you can spend 10K and make 12K and get that 20% gains, that's actually really big success. So I don't see this as, I've done a lot of things wrong. I definitely am not doing everything to the point that I want to be doing things, but I also think it's nice to hear a more authentic representation of potential gains in the self-publishing space, as opposed to people who just tell you, I made $100,000 in a year with no expenses or whatever. Almost always there's a lot of expenses. If not advertising, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. People are sinking in, thousands of hours into their publishing career and not really paying themselves for that amount of time as they would a salary. So I don't want to just, I do think it's a realistic goal for people to make money self-publishing if they do it intentionally, but it doesn't mean it's easy or it's all gains or all profit. Anyway, so I started with that, where this isn't a humble brag. I don't want people to buy my books. I don't want other authors to buy my books. They're not the right audience. This was not a marketing play where I was trying to get attention for my books or anything like that. I really just wanted to be available to ask some questions. I've been kind of poking around Reddit, and I sometimes answer random questions. The problem is, if you're just one voice among 100,000, I think the subreddit is up to over 1 million. People don't listen to you. People listen and appreciate the advice that makes them feel better. I'm definitely not that guy because I'm pretty blunt with my opinions, but my opinions are based on a lot of experience in the industry. So I started basically with a checklist about some of the things that I've done that have worked, a kind of a collection of ideas and tips and recommendations just to give people a fuller picture. This was the screenshot that I wasn't allowed to share on Reddit, even though some people asked for, proof that I was actually making money. And like I said, this is 100K split over 5 years where 80% of it is not profit, which works out to like 5K a year. Not great at all. But if you get like a 15K advance, which is not unreasonable for a first time author, split over 3 years, that's about 5K a year. The point is that, writing is not necessarily a full time income for the majority of authors. And even for someone like me who is, this is what I do for a living, and I'm not making a significant chunk of my income from book sales yet. I have been learning a lot. I feel like I've been investigating and experimenting for a long time. I know what I need to work on. I know how to boost my income from this point forward. Doesn't mean I've done all the things that I need to yet. But it also doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about. I've had some people come back to me and say, well, your books aren't selling millions of copies. So how do you know? How can I trust you, basically? And there's a ton of industry professionals who do a lot of different things who may not be writing their own good books. Or even if they're writing their own good books, it doesn't necessarily mean they have enough content, or they've built out the marketing funnel, or they're spending enough in ads yet. So don't discount people who aren't making tons of money, because the truth is the authors who are making tons of money, they don't need courses, they don't need services, they're not going to be doing anything else. They're not going to be hanging out giving free advice in Facebook groups or Reddit groups, because they can just write more books and make so much more money. It's also just not very fulfilling. Like I really like to help people, but if people don't listen and if they're hostile to my advice, it's a lot more satisfying to just ignore the crowd and keep writing my own books until I am at the point where I'm making lots of money. So one of the first interesting pushbacks I got this question several times. I said, I'm not a fast writer. I write about 4 books a year. And a lot of people were like, that's crazy. 4 books is crazy. How is that not fast? And it's because I hang out with a lot of other writers who are writing a book a month. It's their full-time job. I feel like I'm not great at what I do because I'm not at that level. Not necessarily by choice or because of a lack of skill. I know I can write 3,000 words a day. I could finish, and I have finished a book in a month, but I don't do it consistently. I procrastinate. I get distracted with other things. I would like to be writing that fast, but I also try to tell myself, 4 books a year, that's fine if I was consistently finishing series rather than starting new books all the time. But my main point and answer to this question was that when people talk about fast writing versus slow writing, there's no difference in how fast people write. Most people can write 1,000 words an hour roughly. So you can be a 3,000 word a day author, or you could be 1,000 word a week author. It doesn't mean you're slower. You're just putting less time putting words on the page. So writers who write a book a month, they're choosing to spend 5 hours a day writing versus 5 hours a week writing. That's really the difference. Also, people who have a lot of experience tend to be able to crank out first rough drafts that are pretty good, pretty finished. I also know, like, when I finish my first rough draft, I plot pretty well. I edit and revise really hard, but I also write really clean books. I don't get stuck and write books where I have to spend months and months revising and polishing. I've also said it's a huge disadvantage to write slowly, because if you write a book that you started, 10 years ago, you're always becoming a better writer. You're always learning more about your craft. You're always going to see more and more failures that you didn't recognize earlier. And now you have to go back and rewrite those scenes. It's never a great idea to completely be revising a badly written book as opposed to starting over and using your knowledge and writing a better book intentionally. It's just so much work. It's possible, of course, but it's so much work. And you may stop learning because if you're just repeating the same mistakes, or you're trying to figure out what went wrong without actually investing in learning the craft and doing it better intentionally, you may not be making progress with your skill set as much as you need to. You should maybe write. And so I made this comment. You might want to have to write 10 bad books before you start writing good books, which means rather than focus on the book that you're totally invested in, that you've been writing 10 years, try to write a few crappy books on purpose. And by crappy, I just mean analyze the market, look for what's selling, see if you can write at least to the level that is selling and is popular, even if you think, those are bad books. I also got some comments on stuff like, oh yeah, I know people crank out a book a month, but those are crappy books. And the instinct for authors who consider themselves better writers is to say, I'm a real writer. I'm going to write slowly. I'm not going to crank out crap to game the market. And they fail to appreciate that the market doesn't want your beautiful prose and slowly written books. The market has already decided they are happy with these books that are being put out once a month. Those authors are making lots of money, and the readers enjoy those books and keep buying those books. The readership has voted. You may have an opinion that your books are better quality, but the market may not share that opinion, and you're not going to find that out until after you publish. So this was a comment about, $80K is a lot of money to spend. Was there a spectacular failure? And no, I don't think there was. I've definitely made big mistakes. I've lost 3,000, 5,000 by forgetting to turn my ads off. I've spent 27K on Amazon ads and only earned 11K in profit, but that doesn't account for page reads. I've basically just about broken even on most of my advertising costs, which isn't great, but I also know I'm already breaking even with those unfinished series. And when I do finish those series and finish all of the audiobooks and the paperbacks and everything, then those series will be profitable. I've already vetted the concept of those books. Some of those books, I only have book 1 out yet, and I'm less confident about finishing the series. But the popular series, I know that when I finish the series, they will be profitable, which means I can comfortably, ideally, spend time writing those final books, because I know that when they're done, the audience, the appreciation of the audience will make up for the time and energy I've spent crafting those particular products, if that makes sense. I talked a little bit about conversion. Basically, you have to be profitable first. Advertising is great, even if you're losing money, to figure out what's going wrong and fix your conversion, which means your blurb, your cover, and the amount of reviews you get. Most authors never have a converting page, which means all of the marketing in the world is losing money. And they can use that if they spend a small budget. I also got a question about, how do you start? Because it looks like I've spent 80K, which isn't true at all. You spend it like $5 a day. You figure out what's not working, you tweak and you scale until, as long as you can stay profitable. So I was saying, shoot for a 20% profit, and that's great. Then you can boost conversion and scale. Someone asked what conversion is all about. So it means if you pay for 100 clicks and you get a 10% sales, you have a 10% conversion rate, basically. That's going to go up or down depending on a lot of different factors, but you need to be aware of that. And that's why I don't recommend any marketing where you can't track your conversion. So people talk about like offline marketing or book events or paying a publicist, paying someone else to do your marketing for you. And it's hard to learn how to do ads. It's frustrating. It can cost a lot of money. There's a tuition fee for learning something that's competitive and possibly very expensive, but those are where the biggest gains are. Also, you may not have enough content. You may not have a book that satisfies the marketplace enough to be profitable. But if you learn from that and you gain the valuable skills, eventually in your career, when you have enough content or you've written more to market books, those skills will come in handy. So you want to be doing marketing things that not only provide results, but show you your lack and your failures, as long as you're also gaining skill set and knowledge and understanding. Then it's not a waste of money. Then you're basically just in school. I also got this question, is it normal to feel embarrassed about my writing? which is really common. And so I say, yes, of course, it's very normal. You'll always be dissatisfied, even if you've plotted it out, even if you have experience and you've done this before. Every book is a new challenge, and it's never written easily to your own satisfaction. So the first time you're writing a book, you will have crappy chapters that you hate, that you know are bad, and you have to keep writing through to the end and come back to those. And you may still think it's terrible and hate it. But in the second, third, fourth revision, I think I mentioned that, the best things that I write are in the fourth revision final editing stages, where like I have the story, I have the what happens, but it's not good. It's not meaningful. It's the small touching moments in between the action scenes that are really the most powerful. And that stuff doesn't come in until you've basically figured out what happens. I have a 4-step revision process. You can look for it on YouTube or on Creative Indie, where I've talked about it in the past a lot. But it's normal to not be sure about your writing, even if you've already got tons of reviews, even if you've already sold a lot of books. You will always feel like it's not good enough while you're writing it. And even when you finish it, I have many books where, I didn't get the chance to put in powerful scenes that I wish I would have. It just didn't come together. It didn't fit. I've also written some books that I'm not particularly proud of. The funny thing is that the books that you love the most may not be the ones that readers love the most. Most writers will tell you that. So it's not even really about your judgment of your work. I say down here, it's a learnable skill, not an innate gift. It doesn't matter if you don't feel talented enough. If you're insecure, if you're currently not as good as you hope to be someday, all that matters is you put in the time and do the work. You can't control your insecurity. That's always going to be there. It doesn't have to affect the creative process. You have to put in the time and do the work. I used to say that, the more you fail, the more you face your fears, which means publishing. If you have a really successful launch and everybody loved your book, that's great, but it's not going to help you with your insecurity problems. It's not until you face your worst fears, which means everything that can go wrong does go wrong, which is Murphy's Law, which is my last name. So I have some experience with that concept. But the idea is basically to screw up and fail as hard as you can, as quickly as you can, so that you've experienced all of those things that you're afraid of. And a lot of the fear goes away because you've already done everything badly and it's not that big of a deal. You pick yourself up, you try again next time. So don't try to avoid the things you're afraid of. Ignore them, wait for them to happen because they will happen, and then keep writing anyway. So someone did ask, considering the cost involved and the relative lack of profits, basically, is it even worth, publishing? Because I published this, I posted this on Facebook also, and someone said, I don't know whether to congratulate you or to cry for you or laugh at you, something like that, where I thought, I made 100K, this is great, this is a milestone, but to somebody else who has less experience with publishing, it looks like a huge failure. You work for 5 years only to make 20K and lose 80K. It looks like a big failure. I don't see it that way. I think a lot of other successful authors with experience don't necessarily see it that way. But for newbie amateur writers who are expecting to make millions, to spend $10 and make $1,000 or something crazy, because there's a lot of other people in the marketplace shilling courses or services who say, how to make 6 figures as an author, and they don't tell you what it actually costs or how difficult it actually is. There's a lot of false optimism out there, and you may need to buy into the optimism at first just so that you have the motivation to finish the book. Because basically this question is, what's the point? What's the point of even writing? So my answer would be the point of writing intentionally in order to satisfy a particular marketplace is to increase your skill set, which you can only do if your target is to satisfy said marketplace. If your target is not to make money and not to satisfy readers, I think it's difficult for you to actually improve in your skill set, which means you're going to keep doing the same things wrong forever until you've run out of motivation or enthusiasm or budget, and you've been failing for 5 or 10 years, and you just completely quit, which is what a lot of authors do, because they never hit that turning point where they decided, what I'm doing is not working. This is harder than what I thought it was going to be. And they're not ready to give up their ideology or their beliefs about, the purpose of writing, and they quit. It happens very often. 95% of the marketplace is failed authors who end up quitting, who never sell more than 100 copies of their book, which is unfortunate, but that's not something anybody can control, because that's what authors are choosing to believe. I have tons of content, of free content, where I try to combat those detrimental myths about writing. They're not very popular. A lot of other thought leaders or publishing gurus are much more popular because they're a lot more optimistic and a lot more motivating. But unfortunately, the false optimism leads to a brutal frustration and wake-up call, which, people who are ready to listen to some of my advice can skip a lot of those mistakes and start seeing profit much faster, as long as they're open-minded and as long as they're willing to use their craft. I won't say talent, because a lot of writers they've been told they're a good writer and they think they have a gift or a talent, and they think that they can turn that into profit. And that's almost never the case. People who make a profit from writing are people who approach it as a learnable skill and are willing to, not necessarily write what makes them happy or excited or passionate, but write what readers want to read and what readers appreciate and enjoy. That's a different thing. Doesn't have to be a different thing. You can completely love and enjoy the stuff that you write and write popular genres. It's completely possible to do that, but a lot of writers see those as diametrically opposed, and they're scared by that idea of writing books for other people. Next question, is it possible to self-publish and then have some good sales and then have it published again by a professional? No. Almost never. Because most self-published authors don't make money, they would have to sell at least 10,000 copies in a short period of time with an upward trajectory of sales, so that publishers can look at that and say, there's still some energy behind this. Like, it's still going up. If I buy it now, I can still make more money. If you sold 10,000 copies, but now you're not selling any copies, nobody's going to be interested. Foreign language rights might be interested in buying those and republishing them. That happens pretty often. Film rights or movie rights might be possible if you're selling a lot of copies. But mostly, if you are selling like 10,000 copies a month, most publishers will not be able to afford an advance that makes sense for you. You're already making a lot of money. You've already done all of the hard work. They're going to give you, maybe they give you 100K advance, and then they give you 10% of the royalties or whatever. That's basically only a year of earnings. You know that after the first year, you'll be losing money. Whereas if you had just kept it yourself, you'd be making more money. So not only it doesn't happen, but you don't actually want it to happen. If you're actually selling books as a self-published author, you should keep selling your own books as a self-published author. There's a lot more possibility for income as a self-published author than there is for a trad publisher. I say down here, the complaint I have against traditional publishing, even though it's fine, is that you're basically seeking validation, and you have to wait years to be validated. You have to find an agent. The agent has to sell it to a publisher. You might finally get a deal. I see a lot of stuff on Twitter like, yay, after years of querying, I finally got a publishing deal, and everyone congratulates them because that's the dream. But actually, they're not really making any money. The average advance, like I mentioned, is something like 10K. And I've actually seen people celebrating book deals that don't even have an advance, that are just a profit share, which is becoming more popular with smaller boutique presses, where they don't even get an advance, but they handle editing and cover and stuff, and they have the validation, but it doesn't mean they've sold any books. It doesn't mean anybody likes their books. It just means they pitched their query and blurb idea and somebody else thought that it was going to be profitable. So that's the other thing that's important to realize, is when you are trying to get validation from an agent or a publisher, someone to tell you, yes, you're a good writer, they're not investing in your skill set necessarily. They're investing in your product because they have done the research on the marketplace. They know what is selling and what they're looking for. And you have written a book that satisfies those conditions. It's the same as writing to market, whether you've done it intentionally or not. If you want to be successful as a traditional publisher, that will only happen if somebody else sees the market value of your manuscript and thinks that they can sell it and make money more than the cost of the investment that they're putting into it. That said, most big publishers, they will invest in 100 projects with a 10K advance and they won't promote any of them. They'll cover the basic cost, but they won't invest any marketing or advertising budget at all, because what they do is they gamble on 100 books and one of them sells 1 million copies and they make their money back. So most traditional publishers know that they do not get the support or the marketing that they expected when they first got a deal, which is what most authors, that's the reason that they want to be traditional published, is because they think that excuses them from learning about marketing or building their own platform or figuring out advertising or anything. And it doesn't. And what's going to happen is 3 years later, 5 years later, eventually when, that book has had its run and you can't get an advance for your next book and you have no idea how to self-publish or how to build your platform or how to market, you'll be starting over from zero. So whatever your big advance was that you've spent by now, no matter how successful that book was, you're starting over again from zero and competing with people who have spent 5 years learning the business. It puts you at a big disadvantage. You can still traditional publish if you want to. I'm not saying don't do it, but build your own platform first so that you can try to push them into a bigger advance. Because if you get a 50K advance, 100K advance, I have said in the past, like, I will wait till my email list is 100K and I can say, I've sold 100K books sales, which I can basically say now, in order to, if I want to traditionally publish, try to force them to give me a bigger advance, which means they will have to work harder to dig themselves out of the hole. They will invest more in marketing to make my book successful. That's what I personally would do. That's something I would advise you to think about. Someone also asked me this question, which is what proportion goes to advertising, editing, etc., which is an important question. And I don't have a good answer because I'm not a good example. I have been an editor for many years. I started as an editor, then I was a book cover designer. It's hard for me to let go. It sounds really vain, but I don't trust any other editor to be a better developmental editor than I am, which means I don't need feedback on my story or plot outline or like what happens, which means I would only be paying for a copy editor or a proofreader, which is fine and it has its place, but I use Grammarly or ProWriting Aid to get rid of most of my typos. I still publish with typos, but it tends to be 5 or 10 out of the entire manuscript. I personally don't think that's a big enough deal to invest $1,000 of profit into a proofreader. I know a lot of other people will disagree with that. I know other people say that indie authors have an expectation to be just as good as traditionally published authors, or else we're lowering the bar basically, and bringing the reputation down. I understand that argument. I personally, and everything I've said in Guerrilla Publishing and all my platforms, I don't believe self-publishing authors have a responsibility to compete with traditionally published authors. They have a huge team. They have a huge budget. They are paying for all of this stuff. If you as an indie author, which with much smaller profit, if you're spending the same amount of money on all the same stuff, but you're making 10% of the profits or the proceeds or the income, of course, indie authors are losing money. Trying to compete with their game is losing money for self-publishing authors, which will cause your book to fail rather than, for example, investing in a book cover, which is more important, or investing in advertising, which is more important. So I know that a lot of people disagree with me and get angry when I say stuff like this, but the value of self-publishing is to be able to compete by lowering the playing field, by lowering costs and doing enough of the most important things to be successful. And the most important thing is whether your book satisfies readers, which means when they start reading it, do they finish reading it? Did they enjoy it? That's what matters most. But to get them to start reading it, you have to have an amazing book cover, an amazing blurb, and enough reviews. So I would focus on advertising, platform building, book cover. I use Grammarly and ProWriting Aid, which I recommend using both because they catch different things. I also strenuously edit, mostly like 7 full passes through my books. I don't catch everything, but I also know that my books are relatively clean. I get a lot of other people, a lot of other authors read my books looking to critique it, to see if I know what I'm talking about. And they usually say stuff like, yes, he can really write very well, but it doesn't excuse the typos, or it doesn't excuse, his advice or whatever. They're looking for reasons to critique. But I also know my core audience of readers, they will overlook a few typos if the story is good enough, and my stories are good enough. I usually, after publishing, people will email me the typos they found, and I will fix them. I probably still have 5-ish typos in all of my published books, which on the one hand is inexcusable. I need to go back and fix those, and I will when I, finish my series and I do the box sets and I do the audiobooks. But I also don't feel like it's worth spending thousands of dollars per book when I'm not earning thousands of dollars per book. Once I've vetted the concept and I have enough content to be more profitable and spend more on advertising to get more readers, which I think is more important, then yes, I can use some of those, some of that income to go back and do a fuller edit if I think it needs it. Anyway, take it with a grain of salt. I know that not everyone agrees. I do think it's important not to waste more money than you can afford to lose, especially on stuff that may not matter. The flip side is that a lot of self-published authors have a book that nobody wants to read. It's just not good. And they'll spend on a developmental editor. They'll pay $5,000 on editing and make it very, very clean with no typos, but it's still not very good. Nobody wants to read it. It may be beautiful writing, it may be well written, but it's not a good story. People don't finish reading it. That's going to be a killer for you, no matter how much time or money you spent on the editing. So I do think editors are really valuable. I do think you can learn a lot. I definitely think you should try to get rid of all of your typos with beta readers or ARC readers if you can. But I also think it's an amateur mistake to worry too much about making it perfect. I definitely did that with my first few books. I know most other authors do that as well. It's a learning experience. I also I do this for a living. It's hard for me to outsource to an editor, not because I don't make mistakes, but because the mistakes I make are easily fixed, easily flagged by even robotic software, but basic proofreaders, low skill level, sharp-eyed readers, basically. The really advanced storycraft, if I do a developmental edit for something, I can point out their plot holes and tell them how to fix them. That's really high level experience that is expensive because very few people know how to do stuff like that. But I can do that with my own books, which is why I don't spend money for someone else to help me do that. I do think it's really important to invest on a book cover. So I was talking about book covers and how they're really important. I have tons of resources about book cover design, tutorials, templates, and all sorts of things. I do teach people how to do it themselves because, like I said, I don't think you need to spend a lot of money, especially for your first few books while you're figuring things out. And it won't, a good book cover won't overcome a bad book, but it gets people in the door and it is really important. So rather than spending money on publicity or marketing or advertising or any of that stuff, I would invest most of it in a really strong cover. But you also have to understand that a lot of people who design covers may not know what they're doing. And if you're telling cover designers exactly what you think you want on your cover and they make it for you, that may also not be great. I know lots of people who spent a lot of money on covers and still didn't end up with a professional cover that sells books, which sucks. I mean, it's a weird industry where the people providing the services don't always do what's best for the book. But anyway, it's important. I have a lot of other stuff about hiring designers or working with designers and doing your own covers. So I'm going to skip down to the next question, which is about blogging. How did you set up your blog? I just talked a lot about this. I was on an interview for an online publishing summit recently, and I talked a lot about blogging because most people will tell you blogging is a waste of time, and it is for most authors with one book. It's not worth the time it takes to grow a blog because the conversion to that organic traffic is really low to a particular book. On the other hand, it's nice to have a lot of free traffic to play with. I can test my conversion really quickly because I get thousands and thousands of views a month. So I can put my offer in front of them and see what that conversion looks like, and always trying to be improving that. And I'm not paying for that traffic. I've paid with my time to build content for the blog posts or the articles. So here's a list of writing topics for authors. I do think it's important to have some articles written on your blog so that when they sign up in your email list, you can send them through a welcome series and point them to some crucial articles that help to humanize you and to explain what you write and who you write for. You're bridging the gap between mostly you just have your product, which is the book. And if you advertise straight to your book, they might like it or they might not. Maybe 10% will buy it. 90% of those people will disappear and never hear from you again. If you can get them on your email list, because you have a blog, so they show up because you're talking about things they're interested in, they find you organically. If you can get them on an email list, you have a longer opportunity to build a relationship with them by providing good content. That's what you can do, and that's what's going to set you apart from people who are just sending them straight to the book. So it's not very measurable, but it does make a big difference because you're fighting for attention. So if people know you and like you, they will give you more of their time and attention. They will pay attention when you're talking or when you say things or announce new releases or whatever. So rather than always trying to pitch a cold audience, having a blog or having an email list allows you to try to warm up that audience so that your conversion rate will go up in the future. The next question is pretty similar. People talk about lists and reviews. So lists are really important because you need to get book reviews before you can do any kind of marketing. If you have a way of contacting people and giving them a free ARC copy, not in exchange for reviews, because you can't do that, but you can offer a free book and ask people what they thought. Also, it's really hard to market a book for sale to a cold audience. It's hard, you can't go in someone's Facebook group and say, buy my book. But if you go into a relevant Facebook group and say, I just finished a book and I would love to hear real feedback from real readers, you can get a free copy here. The first battle will be getting anybody to read your book, even for free. So you shouldn't avoid it or argue that I spent a lot of time on this book, it deserves to make money. No, it doesn't. Nobody owes you a living. The first challenge is to get anybody to even read the first couple chapters at all. The second challenge is to get them to enjoy the first couple chapters enough to finish reading the whole book. If you can't do that, nothing else matters. But when you're starting out, you have to be able to get some reviews by giving away some of your books for free. That's just kind of how it works. Successful authors who have been in the game for a long time, they will argue that it doesn't make any financial sense to give books away for free anymore for them because they can make more money straight advertising or launching a full price book. They don't even need to do 99-cent deals. They can launch a full price book and make a lot more money. It's not worth it for them to do free or 99-cent releases, but you are not in the same position that they are. They're doing everything right. They've learned how to do everything right. When you start off, you will be doing everything wrong. You have a lot of hurdles to clear at the same time. which will mostly mean absolute dead on arrival, no sales, no views, visibility. You have to overcome all of the hurdles that you've set up by doing things wrong, by giving away free copies. That's the easiest way to overcome the majority of the hurdles until you get some feedback and figure out, how do I position and market this book to the right audience better? Someone asked me, because I talked about how I write multiple series, they asked me about series writing. I'm not a good example. I've never finished a series. I have 15 open series or something ridiculous like that. That's allowed me to learn a lot about writing and publishing quickly. It's obviously not a good strategy for making money. The flip side of that is everybody says you should rapid release, which means you build up a finished series before you release it so that you can launch, one after the other, 3 weeks apart or 6 weeks apart, which definitely works. My response would be, don't spend a year writing a series until you've vetted that first book is going to be successful, because what you might figure out, especially if you buy covers for the entire series and then you realize you got all your covers wrong and you're not converting, and you have to recover the series. That happens pretty often. So I would rather launch a book when it's ready to see what people think about it and to test and tweak my marketing, my advertising to the point where I know I've got most things right, and then finish the series. So somewhere in between that, I answered this question with, no, you shouldn't work on multiple series at once, unless you get stuck with a series or you feel like this series is not going to be profitable. And then I think it's totally fine, if you're excited about some new opportunity, to start writing something new. It's always better to get something written than to have nothing written. I also say don't get distracted and switch to whatever's easiest, because a lot of people are serial failures in that, when writing gets hard and they finished a crappy rough draft and they can't revise it because it's too broken, they will switch to a new story because it's easier for them to, and more exciting and more fun, to just write a new story rather than to fix and to learn from their mistakes. So you can do whatever you want. It's better to have a book that's written than to not have a book that's written. I said that better somewhere, but you can read the article. Anyway, there's not a hard and fast rule in regards to writing series or launching series. Series are great. You will always make more money when you finish a completed series. Which series is going to be the most profitable? That's, a bigger risk. So rather than, for example, writing a series a year over 10 years and ending up with 30 books, I've written 10 book ones, and now I'm going back and finishing my most successful series. That's not something I recommend. I know it's really weird. I know readers really hate it. I think it's going to work out very well for me personally. That's just the way that I've done it. I also got this question about basic suggestions or advice for someone trying to write their first book. And of course, this is a huge topic. I have written a whole book about writing books called Bookcraft, which you can look into. That's about the craft of the writing. I have lots of cheat sheets and chapter outlines and tutorials that will definitely help you to write a better book faster, which is really important. But my main advice here, I think I mentioned earlier, is focus on a super popular genre that you have some interest in. Read the bestsellers, read the reviews, understand why readers like or dislike them. Without copying anything ever, make a list of common genre tropes or cliches. What you're basically trying to do is over comply with genre expectations rather than what most authors do and try to break all the rules and write something new and fresh that no one wants and no one is looking for. Nobody is looking for a unique book that doesn't fit into anything else. And even if you have one of those, and even if it's really good, you don't ever have the time to convince them. The more that they're not looking for it, the harder you're going to need to convince them that it's worth their time, which means more reviews, better covers. Everything has to be a step up, a better level to overcome the resistance of having something that isn't what they want. It's much easier to overconform with genre expectations. Maybe you don't like those cliched book covers that look exactly like all the other ones in your genre, but they work much better than anything else. So what you want is not really what's gonna make the biggest difference to the market. The market is always going to decide whether or not your book is successful. It's always going to decide how much work and marketing you're going to have to put into it, rather than trying to write the great book of American literature. Like, your first book's always going to be the hardest because you care too much about it, and because you're not listening to them, you're not willing to listen to the market. If you decide, I'm just going to write the crappiest book I can, I'm going to try to write, a crappy vampire shifter, paranormal romance, or whatever, only to get to the base level. Like, I know it's not going to be amazing. I'm not trying to make something amazing. I'm trying to just make it good enough so that people who read vampire shifter, paranormal romances don't absolutely hate it, which you can do, but you can also fail at. And I know a lot of people who think, I'm going to write, a Shades of Grey, but it's going to be so much better, so it's going to sell more copies. That's never true. You have to understand why those books are successful. Readers like those books. If you want to appeal to those same readers, you can't assume that they're going to appreciate something significantly different. You're going to have to give them more of the same. It doesn't mean a clone or a copy, but you have to understand, the writing tropes or cliches that go into that genre. You have to hit the mark. You have to learn the rules before you can break the rules. Anyway, that's something that for some authors it's liberating, because if you're trying to write a shitty book that you don't care about, you're actually going to make progress and you're not going to be so attached to the results. So if you fail, so what? But you might actually learn a lot about writing in general. You have to learn how to write a crappy, basically good enough, fulfill the market genre expectations, before you learn how I can do better and become one of the best. Because what readers really want, they want more of the same, but there's a curve I shared somewhere. There's an adoption curve where people are always looking for, when they're looking for innovation, they're looking for slight improvement. They're looking for the same things they already know and like, but different and better. So you're trying to, hit the mark by providing all the genre expectations and tropes, but also do it in a new way with, new interesting characters or settings or backgrounds or whatever. You can always tell your story and tell it in your voice and use your writing style, but you have to. The other interesting thing about, craft of commercial fiction or genre writing is that it's the same in every genre. Your problems are going to be backstory dumps, intrigue and suspense, description, showing, don't telling. These are common rules to good writing that are going to be the same in every genre. So you can learn those rules no matter what kind of book you want to write. And if you fail to learn those rules, your book will be unsatisfying no matter what the story is about. You can tell any story. You can have a fresh, unique story or not. The biggest difference is learning how to tell it in a way that it's an enjoyable reading experience. That's what you need to focus on learning. On the flip side of that, sometimes you have to write a few failed books so that you're ready to recognize your mistakes and move on. I'm not sure if it's completely easy to learn all of the rules the first time around before you've done it the wrong way. I think most people probably learn the wrong way by, cranking out a few books, recognizing that they're terrible, and then seeing how the rules can apply to fix their own craft. Anyway, but definitely you can learn a lot and improve quickly without spending years struggling and writing bad books. So hopefully that made sense. I did make this comment, which is focus on finishing your imperfect ideas, not perfecting your unfinished ideas. Hopefully that's clear or something. This question is kind of similar. How do you balance writing what you want versus writing what to put in the world, or writing what will sell? And I think, like I mentioned earlier, there's a common dichotomy that writing what you want and what the market wants is always going to be completely separate, which I don't think is true at all, but a lot of authors think that it is. However, in this particular case, the question was about POC, which is people of color, LGBTQ writers. So she is concerned because she wants to get a traditional publishing deal, and like I mentioned, publishers and agents are only going to invest in projects that they think there's a market demand for. So they're looking for a very specific thing. For example, traditional publishers aren't interested in dystopian because they think dystopian books had a huge peak like 10 years ago with the Hunger Games stuff, but it's too risky now. They won't invest in it. More recently, they've been investing in dystopian fantasy hybrids. So that's a very popular traditional published genre that they are still looking for because they're popular, but they don't really know what's popular and they make a lot of mistakes. Just because traditional publishers aren't willing to invest in it doesn't mean readers don't want it. So there's a lot of things. Like I write mostly dystopian or fantasy dystopian novels. I know that readers still want those kind of books. I don't need to get validated or wait for permission by having a traditional publisher. Like there's a huge difference between how many copies traditional publishers need to make to break even and pay their huge staff and everything. It's not financially worth it for them, but I can still make a lot of money self-publishing because I don't have the same kind of expenses or publishing team or marketing budget or whatever. I can earn 10% of what they can earn and sell less copies, and still it's worth my time. And it's also what I like to write. So firstly, I said, I self-publish because then I don't have to wait for publishers to tell me what they think is marketable. I do my own research. It doesn't mean I always write what's most popular. Dystopian is not an easy sell. It's werewolves are evergreen, vampires are evergreen. You can hit market tropes or genres like the Academy stuff for the last couple of years has been really successful until it wasn't anymore. Now it's not such a good bet. For a while, it was really popular. When you're self-publishing, you can get to market a lot faster. So trends or tropes tend to last, a year or two. You can definitely time those if you want to, but I would be shooting for more general evergreen content that's always going to be, in demand by some audience. You can make a lot of money even if it's a really small audience without a lot of competition, but you can make more money if you get into a really popular genre at the right time and are good enough to compete. Because if something's really popular, they're not going to read the top 10 books. They're going to read the top 100 books of that category. If you've got a book in the top 100, you might get just as many sales or a lot of sales, even if people don't, necessarily love it as much as some of the really big bestsellers. Somebody asked if I had done things like book giveaways. I have talked a lot about book giveaways, various types of book giveaways. So you can find that on Creative Indie or on my YouTube. But I also give away ARC copies to get reviews on sites like InstaFreebie, BookFunnel, NetGalley, or Booksprout. I use BookFunnel for most of my ARCs. There are different sites where you can set up free copies. I recently did a book giveaway on a big website I'm blanking on right now, on Goodreads. So I've made a video, I think, about whether or not it's worth it to do book giveaways on Goodreads. So it's a whole separate thing. But generally, yes, I also use my 5 free days with KDP Select. I try to do it, every 3 months when I can. Each time I'll get a couple thousand new readers. Obviously, that's going to make a lot more sense when I have a completed series. I can get new readers into book one. But at some point, I will be able to advertise book one profitably because I'm making money for my series. And then it might not make sense anymore to give away free copies or to do free days of my book ones. And I won't need to anymore because I'll be able to advertise a full price book one. Somebody asked, how do you make time or find time to write? I'm not someone to ask about that. I have ADHD and significant procrastination problems, but I have put up a lot of stuff about Write the Magic. In the back of the Bookcraft book, I have a whole bunch of stuff about productivity and motivation, including various supplements or lifestyle hacks that I think are useful. I'm personally not satisfied with my productivity. It's something I'm struggling with. I think most writers struggle with it to a degree, but I do have a lot of resources that can help in that regard. Somebody asked me about a launch strategy and buying ads. They were talking about how you should start 4 to 6 months in advance, which is true if you're planning a really big book launch and you're reaching out to influencers and trying to get guest posts and things. There's kind of a funny post I saw maybe a year ago. Somebody had done a ton of work on a book launch and got, guest posts and reviews from huge famous celebrities and things, which is amazing. They did so much work, but it didn't work that well because celebrity testimonials don't really sell books that well. And they don't, you can have a good launch, and then if you haven't built your own platform or a systematic funnel that brings in new traffic, your sales will dry up if you're not learning advertising or anything. So they did a perfect launch with tons of work, and they're still not selling books. I don't think it's worth it, which is why I don't focus on that kind of marketing, like reaching out to influencers or trying to get reviews from people with big platforms. I don't think it's worth the time or the investment to send out reviews 3 months before you publish to the review sites. So I don't do any of that. I launch and then I spend ads to my own list or my own platforms, which is basically, that's it. My last book, I got like 1,200 pre-orders, and I pushed it pretty hard to my audience. I do a lot of work for those 1,200. So I'm reasonably satisfied with those, but I'm also disappointed that, given the size of my email list, which is 80,000 people, 1,200 sales is really not that great. So, I think it's a wake-up call for authors that think it's going to be easy when they see people like me. And I'm not doing everything right by any stretch of the imagination, but I also have a significant platform, and it's still not easy. I hear people say things like, oh, well, it's easy for you. You've got a big platform. No, it's not. Conversion really sucks. 1,200 sales out of at least 10 emails to 80,000 people, plus my Facebook groups and stuff. 12,000 sales is great, but that's really not good results, not results I'm really pleased with. Other people could do a lot better than I have, and you can do a lot of work if you're starting out and you're building a platform. You might also have better results. But I think, shooting for a 10% conversion rate or a 10% action rate, even of people who follow you and, like your writing, who have signed up to your email list, I think 10% is reasonable. It's pretty good. You can still be profitable at 10%. So, I have friends or even students who have gone through my programs who do so much better, who are making 20 or 30,000 a month off of one book, which is ridiculous. And they are doing a lot of work, and they might be in non-competitive categories where nobody else is running ads or doing the effort. So, they have a virgin playing field. Like, they're the only ones taking action, so they're getting these crazy results. That's also possible. I'm not in those particular markets. I'm impressed with their results. I think it's great. I still hope I will have better results in the future when I have completed series, but I also think, this is a realistic average goalpost for newbie authors to appreciate, that it's not completely easy. But also, you don't have to do all of this work. A lot of authors complain about how, like, I just want to write the books. I don't have time to invest, all my time. I don't want to, spend 6 months on a book launch campaign. And you don't have to. I don't work very hard to launch my books. You could, but I know that most of that stuff doesn't work anyway. So there are a few things that you can do. And if they aren't working, you need to fix your core platform, which is mostly what I teach and what I talk about before you can start seeing results. Anyway, so I hope that that's eye-opening, or possibly, what's the word? I know a lot of people say they feel relief when I talk about stuff because they see someone who, I have some results, but they're not, crazy moonshot 1,000x returns. They're regular, repeatable, substantial results. I make about $1,000 a month on KDP, but I don't try very hard, and not very much of that is profit. I'm spending a lot on advertising and marketing. So I've said in the past, it sucks that the mark of a successful author is breaking even, but that's because most authors lose money publishing. You have to get to that break-even point which is not sexy and seems like a total failure, but that's actually a very empowering, very positive point. When you can reach that point of breaking even, where I kind of am now, then you know that with new content or with more effort, you will see better results. So the final question someone asked me, I'm considering self-publishing on Amazon. Any advice? I said, yes, do it. I wrote a little bit about how to do it. I'm actually going to finish a new book one series starter, another new book one to another new series. I should finish in about a week. And I will make a step-by-step updated video playlist on YouTube walking through the entire thing. Like, okay, I've got my manuscript. How do I format it? How do I make my cover for print and ebook? How do I upload my files to Amazon, KDP? And how do I launch it? How do I set up my ads? I'm going to do the whole thing. I haven't really done this for a while, and I hear people asking me for it. So I'm going to make a whole video series about that, which will be updated for 2021, but probably for, it's going to be future proof, at least for a while. So if you haven't already, subscribe on YouTube, and you'll see that when it comes out. If you like this video, leave me a comment. If you have any questions, ask me anything about, hitting six figures or writing as a career or anything else that I talked about that you want some more details on. You can also leave me a comment about what you're working on or what your goals are or what your struggles are about self-publishing or writing, and I'll try to get back to you about those as well. Thanks. Bye-bye.